of people who just want to talk and discuss. And they never want to argue, and they don't want to debate, and they don't want to change each other's minds. They just want to hear what each other thinks. And it comes from this tiresome way of thinking in America, that we all have our opinion and that no one can question our opinion, and it's just very tiresome. And I'm glad to see that Mill is not on the side of Dewey and most modern Americans. Now, he gives an ominous example. Quote, persons who learn geometry do not simply commit the theorems to memory, but understand and learn, likewise the demonstrations. I wish. Actually, nowadays, people do learn geometry in that way, by memorizing theorems. It's getting really bad even in mathematics. People say the hard sciences are still okay, because you can't screw around with those, even though philosophy and history and stuff are all being messed with. But the hard sciences are pretty bad too. If architecture and cosmology and physics and geometry and mathematics, if those are part of the hard sciences, then no, the hard sciences are not okay. Maybe engineering is okay. But one of the things they're trying to do with engineering today and teach in colleges is engineering with materials that are more green. Like there are engineers working on ways of building houses out of waste product, like plastic bottles, bales of hay, old tennis shoes, and stuff like that. So engineering itself can even get corrupted. No, it's not safe. Nothing is safe from philosophy. Now he mentions Cicero in an interesting connection. Quote, the greatest orator of antiquity has left it on record that he always studied his adversary's case with as great, if not still greater intensity than his own. What Cicero practiced as the means of forensic success requires to be imitated by all who study any subject in order to arrive at the truth. Now here's an important salient sentence. He who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. You have to know both sides. Now that sounds a little Hegelian, but it's not. You do need to know your foe's opinions as well as your own. Maybe not as well as, Cicero says better than your own. But you do need to know your foe's opinions. I'm somewhat impatient with some objectivists who don't care to read, for example, Immanuel Kant or whatever. I don't care to read it either, but they're impatient with reading books by socialists or something. Why would you read the Communist Manifesto? Why would you read a historical account by a multiculturalist or something? And you cannot simply get tunnel vision and only study like Ayn Rand's books or something like that. There's a huge amount of information out there in the world, and some of it is buried in dumb books by dumb people, and it's good information that can help you understand the world. So you do need to study your enemy, Cicero says, even more than you need to study your own opinions. If you know only about your opinions, you do not know about your opinions, says John Stuart Mill. Now here's almost the climax of the thought. If a person is unable to refute the opposite side, he has no ground for preferring either opinion. So if you give me your opinion, and I say, well, what about the opposite opinion? You say, oh, well, then why not that opinion? You have to be able to refute the opposite side in order to have a justifiable opinion on your side, says Mill. Additionally, says Mill, it is not enough that a person should hear the arguments of adversaries from his own teachers, presented as the teachers state them. Quote, that is not the way to do justice to the arguments or to bring them into real contact with his own mind. He must be able to hear them from persons who actually believe them, who defend them in earnest and do their very utmost for them. Now, it's extremely odd to read that sentence by a European and then have in the back of your mind the Holocaust deniers and how they have been set upon by the civilizations, the peoples, the cultures, the countries that should have learned from the Holocaust. They should have learned about a lack of freedom. And they should have said, never again will we obstruct freedom. But instead they say, never again will we kill Jews, and we'll never forget about the Jews, and therefore you can't deny Jews. And so they are off on the road of destroying freedom. All in the name of not doing the wrong thing. Very bizarre. They should have read John Stuart Mill. We skip to the next page. If opponents of all important truths do not exist, it is indispensable to imagine them and supply them with the strongest arguments which the most skillful devil's advocate can conjure up. Now, what he's just said there that is the basic understanding of what people take falsifiability to be, which is Karl Popper's idea, that you should get your hypothesis or your theory or idea and then try very, very hard to disprove it, to say what can I do to show that it's false. Now that's just bad taste. That's in bad taste. It's just sloppy Hegelian thinking. What you should do is you should get your hypothesis and you should try to demonstrate and prove it. Now, you cannot choose your hypothesis out of a hat, like they tell kids in science class today. First you choose a hypothesis and then you figure out a way to test it. No, first you observe reality. That's what you do first. Then, after you've observed reality and you have many perceptual facts in mind, then you come up with a hypothesis based on the facts, not just out of your hat or from the corner of your elbow. And once you do that, you set about proving that your hypothesis is true. And one of the ways that you prove it's true is that you take the things which would prove it false and you demonstrate that they do not prove that it's false. But you're not trying to prove it false, you're trying to prove that it's true. So that's just sloppy, crappy Hegelian thinking to say you're trying to prove it false, falsifiability. Now, the further issue with this, we're not on the history of science, so we'll be back to Mill in a second, but the further issue with this is that a theory that cannot be falsified, a theory that you cannot try to falsify in any way, is not a theory. That's Karl Popper's main point. So, for example, string theory. Can't falsify it. There's no test you can do to see if it's true or false. Additionally, the multiverse theory, that this is maybe one of many universes, like there's so many universes like there's foam bubbles in a bunch of bubbles in a bathtub or something. These things cannot be disproved. But they can't be proved either. They can't even be tested. They can't be demonstrated. No evidence can be brought. So, falsifiability is bad Hegelian thinking. It's nothing more. It's simply these modern idiots who use euphemisms and change things around and state them exactly backwards from what they really are, like the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is just a huge mess of regulations, or like a living wage, which is, well, maybe that's a bad example. We won't dive off into economics, but that would fit too. These people, they're constantly stating things in the opposite way of what you would think. Once in a while I read a book title, hear a book title or something, and I think that sounds brilliant. And then you find out that it's actually saying exactly the opposite of what the title sort of looks like they should be saying. Anyways, Karl Popper belongs to that whole vein of thinkers. Falsifiability is crap. Testability is how you look at a hypothesis or a theory. A theory isn't a theory unless you can test it, not falsify it.